are right now. But we as Americans were much more liquid than the Canadians. Our asset, that dollar, and we're using it as buying power, was much more powerful based upon now that I'm in another country. And so the same way American experiences it with countries that come in, especially from Europe, those individuals and their currency is worth more than ours. That means they have more liquidity. They have more buying power. Is everyone getting that concept? I want to make sure, you're going to open up your mics, let me know. Are you getting that concept of that part of liquidity? Because I want you to get why this young lady in this image is smiling while she got those dollar bills in her hand. Excellent. I don't hear anyone saying that they're not getting it. So that means I'm cooking with gas. That's excellent. Let's move on to the next slide. Now, the question that Ms. Johnson asks, and she asks that question about liquidity. Here is the liquidity spectrum. Most liquid. Can you tell me what's the most liquid, Ms. Johnson?
Cash and cash equivalents.
Thank you. So that means if you're walking around with dollar bills or your debit card or stuff like that, and you're going to utilize that, your buying power is based upon the fact that you are working with the most liquid thing. You have dollars, you have cash. I know probably Dave would know better than me. Going to Jamaica, I remember there was a time in the 70s where the Jamaican dollar was worth more than the American dollar. Then all of a sudden, particular parties got in power, and all of a sudden, the structure got all screwed up. And maybe he can tell me this. The last time he was in Jamaica, Mr. Greenlee, how many Jamaican dollars was to one US?
I think it was around 150. That's back in about maybe 2018 when I had to take care of some business down there.
Jeez. Think about that. So 150 Jamaican dollars equals one US. Now you wonder why in certain countries where people say, it's not that they're escaping bad things or the environment is not a wonderful place to be raised. They're recognized like, wait a minute, I desire to go someplace where, I have some buying power, have some real liquidity. So you think about that. He said that was 2018. I wouldn't be surprised if those numbers are so much different now. Let's see. I see someone put something in the chat. Let's see. I bet you that's Ms. Johnson. Let's see it. Today, one US dollar equals $157.47 Jamaican. Now think about that. Think about that. It's not the other way around. That means you going to Jamaica with like $1,000 in cash to say that's your spending money. Depending upon where you go to do your money exchange, you know what I'm saying? The people going to look at you, they walk up to you and says, well, a soda is going to cost you $400. And you sit there in your mind, like, what is this person talking about $400 for soda? No, we're talking about 400 Jamaican, which translates to a little over $2 and some change. Your money. See, we have to start thinking and start becoming aware of our buying power. And usually most of us of African descent are not really in those spaces of awareness or are positioned to learn these things, to recognize, wait a minute, we have to have a different conversation, a different viewpoint when it comes to resources and our money. So our money should be working for us instead of us just working for it. And then get caught up in those areas where now as we move into number 2, moderately liquid. Ms. Johnson, what is moderately liquid?
That would be stocks and bonds.
So that means as we were I was asking that question about Facebook, which we got that data. We had $5,000 when Facebook first came onto the market as a public company and just let it ride till now, that $5,000 in protected capital would have grew to over $49,000. Does anyone have Amazon? Since we talk about stocks and bonds, if you had $5,000 invested in Amazon when it first came to market and just said, you know what, that's part of my wealth strategy, that $5,000, just letting it ride. I'm not touching it. I'm not messing with it. I know it's there. That money is working for me. I'm not sitting here messing nothing up. Other than Miss Johnson, who can give me that data about what would $5,000 be worth today?
For Amazon, I put it to 10 years, but I got 30,261. So that's a 6 times return. And the cost today is like $231 per share. At 10 years ago, it was like $37 to $38.
Now, as you got the data open and have your mic open, see if you can ask your assistant that same $5,000 on Amazon from the day that it became a public company. Tell me what that return is. I want you to see why certain communities are moving in an affluent way, and sometimes they position us as Black and brown to move rich. We don't need to be rich. We need to be wealthy and then eventually affluent. Because if you're affluent, you have enough assets that can funnel the type of lifestyle you think people are living. It's funny where you sometimes see billionaires walk around and look like they got a raggedy shirt on, just some regular looking jeans. But they're worth billions. Even they're talking about, we have one individual, I'm not going to say his name because, he did some stuff that, messed with our community. So we don't even deserve to say his name. He doesn't even deserve that type of extra publicity. But he has the potential to be the first trillionaire based upon how he has built up companies and then brought them public, where they get a certain level of valuation and people desire to invest in it, and the stock price goes up, and that means his money goes up. But we play this, or we're not positioned to say, wait a minute. Suppose some of us, when we were 18 years old and we started really learning about, and we were exposed to learning about finances, said, you know what? I'm going to take like 5% or maybe even just 5 to 10% of my income is just going to be always just in some sort of stock, or just put it into the market and just put it in investment and forget about it. Now, if you say, oh my God, no, I got to rent. No. You work with everything else that you're working with. You're being prudent with your dollars. And if you're prudent with those dollars, regardless of you're doing that consistent action, you start to see how you start to generate a possibility and a result. So, Mr. Guthrie, were you able to find that data?
Yes, at its IPO in 1997, 5,000 invested would provide a 12.8 times return, 64,000. 64,218 to be exact today. And they had a 3-for-1 split in 2022.
So that means if that protected capital that just sat there and did what it needed to do, wasn't bothering nobody, you knew it was there and you can always take a look at it. It was out there working, just working. I think all of us would love that 12 times result in the income potential or the resource potential. Just something to think about as we're dealing with liquidity. Now we're dealing with we're answering Miss Johnson's question. Now we're going to move to number 3, less liquid. What is less liquid, Miss Johnson?
Real estate and collectibles.
So, all of you Pokemon people, just like the other day, at the time of this taping, I think it was a couple of days ago, it made national news. A bunch of people came in there and robbed the store. You would say, what type of store? They came in there, guns a blazing. They ain't shoot nobody. They ain't hurt nobody. They messed up the store. They broke into some cases for some Pokemon cards. Not high-end fashion, not some sort of high-end sneaker. They went in there and busted up the place with their guns drawn and ran out of there with 6 figures worth of Pokemon cards. That's collectibles. Now, most people can't go into a real estate building and says, "Oh, I'm gonna go rob this real estate space or place," and be able to do that. So real estate is much more solid as well. But Mr. Guthrie, I know that you are an investor in real estate and deal with that from a seller and also a purchaser aspect. What is so powerful of having real estate as part of your liquidity spectrum?
Well, one of the most significant benefit that many people don't think about in terms of real estate and wealth creation is the tax benefits. It is the single most significant tax benefit that you can have. You find many wealthy people accumulate wealth in one season and you find them divesting into real estate upon discovery of the tax shelter that it provides. It is consistently known as one of the biggest tax shelters because you can convert cash into debt and debt is not taxed. So it is one of the biggest ways to truly, perpetually protect wealth.
Excellent. Excellent.
Plus, you can provide cash flow, but many times the ultra wealthy not even too concerned about the cash flow, but the conversion of liquidity, cash, which is heavily taxed, highest tax, into asset, which is less, and in some cases, not taxed. One of the things about what you were saying, though, the wealthy think consistent growth, slow and steady, as opposed to, it's really about mindset. And 2 things come to mind. Knowledge, especially specialized knowledge, consistently accumulated, especially in this day and age when we have the advent of AI. It is ridiculous how quickly information can be gathered. I know it can be easily taken for granted. No, I mean, just the information you just requested a while ago. Once upon a time, you'd have to go to several sources and it would take you quite a bit of time and research. AI gives you the ability to strategically, swiftly gather relevant, accurate information in a timely fashion, and then it also can help you to troubleshoot. It can help you to define your thoughts. There's too many benefits. So we really have to prioritize wisdom and acquisition of knowledge above everything else. All other opportunities become more and more and more accessible the more you learn and the more you choose to learn and apply consistently.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Those are bars. Let me put your hand clap. Those are bars. And Mr. Jackson, I'm not leaving you out. So while your assignment, now I'm gonna come to you and ask you, you had $5,000 when Netflix became a public company. How much you would have? You don't have to answer that question now. I'll come to you in a little while. So I'm giving you some time to get your data correct. I know you know how to access your anointed intelligence. So, that's Mr. Jackson's question, which he's going to share with us, because now we're dealing with the liquidity spectrum. We're taking this in bits and pieces so we can see. The reason why we're doing this, so we can hear these raw numbers So it doesn't become a thing as like, oh, we talked about cash and okay, cash. We talked about stocks and it's just, oh, okay, we talked about stocks. But it's like now when you start to equate that with some real world numbers, this is not no foo-foo. It's not no, I think this might have happened. No, 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 no. This is the reason why like a Warren Buffett who just stepped down, he's still the executive chairman, but he's not dealing with the day-to-day stuff from Berkshire Hathaway. This man has hundreds of billions of dollars from something that Mr. Guthrie just said. He was very consistent. He was very prudent. He makes choices. He don't jump in, certain things. Even if he doesn't understand, he'll still jump in it. He may not put as much money into it, but he still opened his mind up to certain things and stuff like that. But his stuff was being prudent and being responsible. Prudent and responsibility. And that's the reason why, as we're right on the auspices the day after we celebrated Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday here in the United States, that was one of the main reasons why his last year of his life, that's when he started becoming one of the most hated African Americans in the country, because he started to recognize, like, wait a minute, we got civil rights, we got voting rights, we don't have economic power. And he was being vilified in the press. He was being vilified by the people. Some of the people who used to say that they were backing him and liked him, because now he was crisscrossing the country, helping people that look like him. Because that's the reason why he was in Memphis that day. That look like him. Like, wait a minute. If we don't have any economic power, if we don't have the resources, okay, we can vote. Okay, yeah. Okay, they can't sick the dogs on us. Okay, that's against the law now. Oh, they can't segregate the schools. Okay. But now, when it comes to our economic power, we're still behind the 8 ball. And when he recognized it, it was like, did I put my people into a burning house? And that goes back to liquidity. There was a time where, our skin color would have kept us from getting a loan. You walk into the bank, good name, you've done everything right, they're not giving you a loan. Or if they did give you a loan, they redlined you into a particular area and kept you out of the other areas where it was where the wealthy and the affluent, or even sometimes, let's keep it a buck, just because of the color of your skin, you couldn't even get in those neighborhoods. And so we have to look at it from the space of understand this liquidity thing is so important. We can't be irresponsible. And that's why I said earlier, it has nothing to do with age. Because you can be moving irresponsibly as an elder. You can be moving irresponsibly as someone says, oh, I'm this title. Okay, that's great. How are you handling this? Because it shows, it gives a part of the microcosm who you are. And if you're not handling that right, like, wait a minute, okay, you may be the nicest person in the world. But the worst case scenario is, and I remember hearing this as a young person in ministry, where, these women who are full of faith, they live on like the 25th floor of some project building and the elevator is out. Think about that. Now, how would you say that equates to liquidity? It does. That shows redlining. That shows how, how certain things are projected because of lack of liquidity, lack of choices, or kind of funneled into that specific type of living. Now, we're not saying this woman is not a nice woman. She might be even one of the mothers of the church. But why are we living like this? Or why were we conditioned to feel comfortable to live like this with lack of liquidity? Or when people used to attempt to position and say, don't go out there for the wealth. You know what the good book says? No, the good book says the love of money is the root of all evil. That does not mean that you should be procuring or stopping yourself from aspiring to make as much money to hit affluent status as you so choose. But that type of thinking, that type of mindset gets perpetuated. And then we start making excuses for our behavior, emotions. Then it's easy for us to start to point a finger. I'm not on a soapbox. We're still on a liquidity conversation. But we have to sometimes really be aware. And when we talk about liquidity, it's not just about cash. That's why I'm happy. That's why I was so happy when Nicole asked that question, because I knew, as based upon how we've been sharing it, we're going to break this thing down even more easier and make it much more able to be digestible. And as we move to number 4, illiquid. And what are illiquid things, Miss Johnson?
Fine art and rare items.
That's why when you hear some of these high-end affluent people, especially wealthy and affluent, so saying, you know what, I'm going to spend $2 million and I might buy that jersey or that piece of art to hang up on my wall. Because especially next week when we get into insurance, they'll get that $2 million piece of art and all of a sudden hold on to it for a year, maybe 10 years. Make sure it's insured now so it's covered. And all of a sudden one day, someone sells another piece of art from, if lucky you have the right artist. And all of a sudden that person's piece of art, they sell it for 20 million, but you remember you purchased that piece for 2 million. So how much do you think your piece, but it's illiquid now. This is when you start talking about legacy and real wealth and affluency. There's liquidity where they can sit there, someone can come in your house like, yo, you have a Jackson Pollock on your wall. How the hell you have a Jackson Pollock on your wall? And people say, oh, it just looks like a bunch of squiggly lines. And then when you start to see what Jackson Pollocks are worth, and you sit there like, oh, you start to respect those squiggly lines. But it's still illiquid. It's not something that you can go into a store, or even that's when you're in the space of liquidating, or if you have so much art, you say, you know what, I'm ready to sell it. And if it appreciated well, as we've heard, as different tax shelters, stuff like that, people have trusts and stuff like that, which we'll get back into over the course of the year. But it's still part of your liquidity. Because if you have rare stuff that you own, those items where people talk, even now we talk about certain items when it comes to like footwear and stuff like that. Like, I know there was a pair of Air Jordans that sold for like over $1 million. Some of the original ones, especially I think there was one of the first ones that he wore in a game in the 80s. And probably someone can find the data, but I believe that one of those pairs sold for over $1 million. A pair of sneakers. That's a rare item. Now, the person who purchased it probably has that sucker insured. It's in the protected case and stuff like that. And it's appreciating now because there's now not only a perceived value, which is liquidity, but now as time goes on, that person gets to the bunch, which will still be, it'll kind of suck. But then all of a sudden, okay, I got to sell this. Because, I got to go handle some stuff over here. But they're not going to a credit card. They're not going to a hard money lender. But they have something of value that now, okay, I have to liquidate this so I can go take care of that. So I don't think any of us here, and I can put myself in this, I don't think I have all 4 of these. I have some of these. I think I have 3 or 4. I have 3 out of the 4. I'm definitely not nowhere near number 4 yet. But I wouldn't mind one day being at number 4 as well, having number 4 as part of my conversation of liquidity. Because that means if I have number 4 is not about me. Number 4 is about, okay, this is probably going to be for the grandkids, for the children's children. Because we're playing a long game. We're going to win at this game of life. So any thoughts or questions before we move on? Anything that's coming to
Coach, I have a question.
Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, we touched on the IPO for Amazon in 97.
Mm-hmm.
But the number that I heard our brother come up with was much, much smaller than what I'm seeing on my screen here. My screen is saying 11 to 16 million plus today, were it held continuously. But I didn't hear
from $5,000.
$5,000 at Amazon's IPO in 1997.
Mm-hmm. And how much would that be worth right now?
It's saying 11 to 16 million plus today, held continuously. I don't know if somehow the wording is throwing me off or what, but
No, Miss Johnson. That's Miss Johnson. That's why she's the co-host. She said Amazon have invested at inception $18 per share since IPO. Split adjustments. 11 is over $11.5 million.
okay. Maybe I just didn't hear it.
Oh
Okay.
no. You're good. And see, this is what we're talking about when we talk about liquidity and protected capital. See, sometimes when you're in these respective markets, some of these markets is not about going in for like 1 or 2 years, hoping for your money to go up so you can pull it out. This is supposed to be money that you are using for your wealth generation.
Mm-hmm.
So you're hitting that number 2 so hard. There's people who love the bond market. Bonds just mean that you are buying stuff that these people literally, if a company goes bankrupt, the first people that get paid are the bondholders, not even the stockholders. Because the bondholders are holding the debt. The bonds are saying that, yo, I loaned y'all some money, and I have these bonds to show that, yes, I have proof that I lent y'all money. Y'all supposed to be giving me X amount of interest ever so often because you have my money working in your company so you can stay open day to day. Oh, you went belly up? Not a problem, even though I'm sad that happened. But when they start talking about liquidating or liquidity or liquidating the company, before even the stock person who owns a piece of stock gets it, the bondholders get taken care of first because they're part of the creditors. And these are the things that we're going to get more and more in conversation on over the course of this year because we have to become much more abreast, if not only just for ourselves, but for those who are coming behind us. We have to be in these type of conversations. Go ahead, Ms. Johnson.
2 things. In terms of your Jordan question, in 2023, the Air Jordan 13 black and reds sold for $2.2 million.
That's crazy.
And he wore them in the game 2 of the 98 finals.
Mm.
But I didn't realize that there were like real sets of Nikes. The Dynasty collection sold for $8 million for some sneakers.
Come on.
And my second question is, you gave us a list of liquidity. Can you give us a list of depreciating assets that we shouldn't even consider until we get to like the affluent level where we do have a stockpile? Like, I know you shouldn't buy a Bentley, something like that, but like a list of things that
Actually,
really shouldn't be on our radar.
See, now we get into more of a tax question, which is not
I'm
really
thinking about it in terms of just
because
something you don't get a
technically
return on.
the reason why I'm giving you a little pushback about how, like you said, don't get a Bentley. Technically, you have people who get Bentleys because they're going to depreciate that sucker so much and it ends up being a tax write-off. That's how the rich do it.
But for a person who doesn't have their own business,
if a person doesn't have their own business, they shouldn't be getting a Bentley. You shouldn't be getting any. Technically, and I like this question. Technically, you shouldn't be getting anything, and that's why, like last week when we were talking about with credit, in regards to the fact that if you're going to make a purchase, and if you can't take care of it within 3 or 4 months, and you put it on a credit card, don't get it. 3 is optimum. 3 is optimum. 4, if you're stretching out to say, okay, this is going to be paid off in 4 months. You know that is the max, even though realistically 3 it will be the better number. But if you had to stretch it to 4, you can rock out with 4. You know that, okay, I can't afford this $3,000, whatever it is. But over the next 4 months, 3 to 4 months, either I know that I'm going to have the liquidity, the cash and the cash equivalents, without having to touch number 2, without even having to touch number 3, and not even touching my number 4, then get it. Because now you have a prudent plan of making sure the reason why you're acquiring this thing or whatever it is, because now hopefully not only are you just getting some personal benefit out of it, but then it's like, okay, these are still investments. You can have depreciable items are not bad investments. Because when it comes to taxation, and I know Mr. Guthrie knows about this, and I know about it from doing taxes all these years, there's certain items that people, depending on amortization and tax depreciation, the way how the laws are situated, that's why people like real estate. That's why people like to have a business. That's why someone who's going to move in those items about depreciable items are usually business owners. And even when you look at, say, people on TV, and you hear, oh, this one got a production company, and that one got a production company. This one is, got a project over here. And there's a reason for this. Even most of the people in Hollywood, when you hear some of these numbers of people getting these contracts or these potentialities and money, don't think that this money is going to them as an individual. They're usually going to a company that was set up that represents that person. Why? Because that means one business is paying another business. You're not paying me as an employee or as a contractor, or even if you're paying me as a contractor, you're paying my company. You're not paying Gregory Clarke. You're paying whatever the name of the company is, you're cutting the check to them. So that means you've already have a business expense, because if I was worth 25 million, okay, you're like, that's a big number. Great. You're going to write that off. We gave Clarke Mindset Coaching $25 million. Okay, that's an automatic write-off. He's not our employee. He did services for us. Whatever it is that justify the fact that he got that check. Now, where depreciation comes into play is, now I have expenses because I have a company. I may have employees. I may have people who work for me. I may have items that I need to purchase. All this stuff, I may have a place that we have rented. It may be a warehouse. It could be an extra lodging or whatever. All this stuff that I'm putting under company guys. That's why the rich continue to keep their money. But what's happening for us, especially Black and brown people, is that we look for the illusion of being affluent, which kills our buying power, even though African Americans that still make up close to now maybe 14, almost 15% of the population are still the number one consumers. Because they know, so okay, they're going to get these dollars in their hand, and we're going to start putting up these things to make them look for these particular brands that may not necessarily can afford, but they're aspiring. Those are depreciable things that we should not be purchasing. Now, as much as I can't stand the 47th president of the United States, he's bold enough to show you some of his own tax strategies when he used to say, oh, I can write off my haircut. I can write off my suit. I can write off the plane. And you sit there like, what is going on here? What the devil? No, it's not the devil. That's when you move in knowledge. You move in understanding. You move in awareness. And you start to recognize, like, just like the other day, I had a conversation with someone in coaching, and we started talking, and he had an epiphany. He said, wait a minute. I started thinking about, the gas that I put in my car. It was like, that's great. I mean, you're starting to think more and more as a business person, not someone who owns a business moving like a worker. It's like, wait a minute, no. When we put this gas in this vehicle, we're going from this location to that location, or we're at this job site, or whatever the case may be. It's not that my credit card was just used to get gas. Wait a minute, that's a business business. Pay me that receipt. So my accountant know at the end of the year when it's time to start, producing, did I make a profit or not? That does not mean that you have money to do your day-to-day operations if you're being prudent and staying within the plan. But those depreciating items are things that you can't afford to impress people who you don't need to impress, just to qualify or to quantify something in you because you think that you're lacking something. Those are the depreciable items. Because if someone is entertaining thinking about a Bentley, if they have the right common sense and the right individuals in their ear, there's a reason why they're getting that Bentley. Because that Bentley is going to become a writable tax off. But that's when people who are thinking from a wealthy or affluent space, not trying to be rich. Too many of us look rich. And the facade is good. It's a beautiful facade. But show me the assets that you have for the reason why you're circulating these dollars on this. Because now, when you get to a certain level of status, what it costs us at our level, and I'm talking about right now here as a comeback collective circle, certain people as they go up that food chain and become affluent don't even circulate as much as what the regular person would circulate. That actor or actress who's walking around that $10,000 gown, you thinking that they spent $10,000 on it? No. The designer is happy to give them that they made for them. Because if that person has enough appeal as looking at it, now that's a depreciable item for them, because that means they're willing to give that item that they put a value on, $10,000 on that particular person. And that person gets all the pictures and the paparazzi comes and this, that, and the third. And next thing you know, it's at some of their high-end stores and they only sell like 60 of them. Just 60. Not 60,000. 60. Because people say, oh, I would love that dress. Or that person says, I need that dress. I see how it fell on that person. Or that suit. Oh my God, that's a powerful suit. So 60. So for that $10,000 investment of giving it to that person who got snapped in the right picture, they sold 60 of those things. $600,000 for 10,000. Of course, that's a great investment. But we don't think like that. So hopefully I answered your question about depreciation. Not as much, because we'll probably get into it as we go over the course of the year, just to give you a little primer.
Yeah.
Depreciable on the depreciation, because depreciation can actually work for you as well. Real world example. We're going to probably soon bring this to a close, because we're not going to be here all night. But the real world.
Quick question, Coach, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Okay. I have a credit card. Let's say that I have $5,000 balance on to be paid.
Balance, or that's what you have access to?
No, balance to be paid off.
Okay.
And I have $5,000 in my house. What would you suggest might be the better way to have a certain level of liquidity in the house? Because credit card is available right away, pretty much, if I need to go out and physically purchase something. The cash would be a little more powerful in that it's, to me, the cash would be easier to use in a situation like that. So $5,000 I could pay off and have the credit card ready to go, or $5,000 in cash, and just pay the credit card off at a reasonable pace so that I'm not getting into the crazy interest payment?
Well, you got to look at it this way. Most people who have access to credit or even get the opportunity to build their credit up to a certain level, and that's why they usually put themselves even in that rule. Most people who have high credit scores usually don't carry balances. That's number one. Number two, even if they do carry a balance, they usually do the 3 month, and if they have to stretch it over 4 months, that means they'll have some credit history showing that that credit card was paid off over a 4 month span or a 3 month span, and that still looks good on their liquidity or their ability to access OPM, other people's money, or access credit. The thing that destroys our community is that at times we get caught up in the credit trap. Whereas you may have used the credit card to buy something in late 2023 around Christmas time. We're in early 2026 and you're still paying for it. Because either I got time, this is just the way my budget was. So that means there were certain things that were not factored in. It could have been an emotional purchase. But now going back to the scenario about having the $5,000 balance or the $5,000 in cash. Depending upon what the credit card, whatever benefits you may be getting from that respective credit card, maybe it's miles, maybe some sort of points. But let's for argument's sake, it's miles. Certain people who travel, they're moving across the world, the globe. People who have credit cards like that usually like to keep their balances low, even if they're in a scenario where they got to go to 4 months, because they're recognizing they're getting a cost benefit for accessing the credit and then the cash that they have on hand to pay the bill. That's what the cash is for. If we're sitting with cash in our homes just to have cash in our homes, remember, inflation eats away at the buying power of your money. That's why if it's not working somewhere, it's not out in the world working, then it makes no sense to have a credit card that all of a sudden when you look at the bill and say, oh, wait a minute, they're charging me 32% interest. If you don't have an asset that's giving you 32%, why are you carrying a credit card long term that you're paying 33% on? That means there was no planning for the access of the credit that you have access to. That means it was mainly emotional spending. Regardless of how it is that you try to, sweep it under the rug or try to make it seem one way, it's emotional spending. And we as Black and brown people have been caught up in emotional spending. That's why this refrigerator scenario is so important. Person needs a $1,000 refrigerator. The cash, like you said, Dave, you have $5,000 in the house. That's great. Gives you the immediate buying power. But what if they only have a rare book collection that's worth $1,000? Say that individual that's not like you, Dave, that, you know what I'm saying, right now, we need a refrigerator. It's our home. Refrigerator went on the fritz, out of warranty. Regardless of how many years old it is, it's time for a new one. It's time for the upgrade. They're telling you, okay, now you can get some decent. There's probably some major sale going on, blah, blah, blah. You can get this refrigerator today at $1,000. Now you know you need the refrigerator. How are you going to get it? You're going to find someone to trade the books for the refrigerator? Very unlikely. Selling the collection takes time to find the right buyer. That means regardless if you're doing eBay, Sotheby's, all those different high-end places, it's going to take time. Plus, you got to pay them their cut. They ain't crazy. They're going to auction off your stuff. Oh, no, you paying a cut of that. They'd be happy to help you sell it because they're getting a cut. Waiting months for work if there's no urgency. That won't work because you know you need the refrigerator. Needing it in days forces selling at a discount. Result, rare books are illiquid assets that can't quickly convert to full value. That's why stuff like that, collectibles, moving in that space like in the previous slide with 3 and 4. 3 and 4 is stuff that you know you're holding on to when it's time, when all of a sudden the market is right. Okay, let's convert that asset into some liquidity. But when it comes to our liquidity cycles as a community, we have to get better because that's why we're helping to keep this country moving based on how we utilize our credit. And then if we get caught up in the credit traps, which is still part of liquidity, now you're caught up in the credit trap. All of a sudden, that thing that you, as that scenario I gave you, you purchase something around Christmas time 23 that you're still paying for now early 2026. Because you probably paid more than double. It's all factored in. That's why after a while, like the Aaron's and some of those companies that do that rent to own stuff, and people didn't look at the look at the fine print. Only costing me $15 a week to get this washing machine in my house. So, you know, you're gonna make 106 payments on it. Paying for the sucker for pretty much 2 years. And at the end of after your 106 payment, that the washing machine is now yours. And you're smiling and grinning. Let's see. 106 weeks times, what was that? I said $15. So that is 1,500 plus 530. So that's $2,030 that you paid for washing and dryer set. You probably can go into any outlet store that some of these outlet companies have, or even some of these big box stores, and get the same set for probably together on a good sale or a major sale, maybe $1,200 together. That's $800 that's gone in equity, in your buying power and your liquidity. We say, oh, you know, it's only $15 a week. That's why we have a liquidity issue, especially in Black and brown communities. We have liquidity issues. Because they'll give us credit. Because they're hoping you fall in the trap. And if you keep using it, keep using it, keep using it, especially if once you get caught in the trap, you know you're in the trap when you only spending the minimums are barely above the minimum. You're in the trap. They got you. It's like a mouse getting caught in one of those glue traps. The right glue, he ain't going nowhere. Now you're ready just to grab that sucker and discard and get that thing out of your home. We must recognize our buying power. We must recognize those areas of liquidity. And the key takeaways that I desire for you to get about liquidity. Measuring liquidity. Market liquidity, how easily assets trade in markets without price impact. Market liquidity deals with like your stocks and bonds, stuff like that, stuff that happens. Because, you know, you could sell some of your stocks and bonds and say, okay, I'm going to cash them out. But now you are trading in wealth generational potential for right now need. Now, are you doing it from an emotional standpoint? And then even if it's a need standpoint, how come it wasn't properly planned? Now we have to start asking the right questions. Account on liquidity measured by current, quick, and cash ratios. As you were saying, Dave, you have a $5,000 balance. I got $5,000 in cash and out. What should I do? Now there's other questions that come into play. Okay, what type of credit card is it? What type of interest rate is it on it? Is it on some sort of special rate where maybe you're paying 0% and it's not costing you as much? Then I would sit there and says, oh, Tell me how long it's staying at around that low interest rate level. And while it's at that low interest rate, pay that balance off. If you choose to do it over time and say you have 4 or 5 months left on it, oh, let's break that sucker up. Okay. They only charge me 4 or 5% when it's usually 20 some odd percent. Okay. So for these next couple of months, we're paying $1,000 plus the interest rate. So by the time we get to that 4th or 5th month and we pay this balance off, we took advantage of that time frame of paying low interest so that we're not caught in a credit trap. And conversion speed. Time required to convert assets affects liquidity level. As we showed from the different 4 spaces of the spectrum, be that wonderful, beautiful piece of art, or sometimes when people luck out and go to someone's garage sale and purchase something, and all of a sudden come to find out it gets authenticated, oh, you have a Van Gogh in your house. Jesus Christ. God bless you. God was smiling on you that day. Because now you can sit there and say, wait a minute, instead of this sucker sitting in my house, let me find out. Take this to Sotheby's or Harrods or whatever. You know what, you may get $50 million. You're going to have to pay us like 5%, but our high net worth individuals would love this. They've been looking for this piece. Yes. Let's sell this sucker quickly. God bless you. That's why we have to have the liquidity conversation. Because liquidity is going to move into insurance in regards to how we move and how we are effective. But with that, I am complete for this evening. And I know we took a little longer than usual, but this was needful. And before we go, because I know Mr. Jackson should have my question ready. So I want to know about Netflix. Yes.
I would have 4.25 million.
Jesus. For $5,000?
$5,000.
$5,000. I didn't say 50. I ain't say 100. I ain't say 6 figures. I said $5,000. And just let it ride. Just let it ride. $5,000. It's like going to I don't even call it a casino. That's not a casino. That type of liquidity spread is something that shows how certain people is like, how these people keep growing in their wealth because they let their money work.
Yeah.
And how's the consumers or the people, as they said, the regular people get caught up in all the respective traps and this and that, and worried about the price of milk and worried about gas. And some of these people join about, I'm not worried about gas. I'm not worrying about, potato chips is $5 for a bag. Okay. Pass me them Doritos. Because, they didn't just invest $5,000. They may have invested whatever that they invested. And of course, just like I said, over time, people ain't stupid. You may have sold here and there and took a little space. But most times, people who have some common sense will sit there and says, wait a minute, okay, my initial investment, if I made my initial investment back and this stock starts splitting and all this other stuff, you know what? I may take $5,000 or $10,000. Where's the stock at now? How much did the stock go up to? Well, it's worth $25,000. Okay, I'm gonna take my 5 and let the other 20 now market money that the asset or the stock or the security has appreciated to. Okay, yeah, I took my little $5,000 out. What you do with the rest? I let the rest ride. I ain't even mess with it. And I was holding on to Netflix since it went open. How much you got? Oh, so your little $5,000 has made you a millionaire. Not real estate. And it's a liquid asset. That if you said, oh God, we need $100,000. You know what? Yeah, we got like $5 million worth of Netflix. Okay, we'll sell 100,000. But we ain't doing this all the time now. Cause see, that means you ain't playing properly. You mucking up the plan. Because they're recognizing how to be well positioned for liquidity and for wealth potential and wealth growth. So as we continue down this dynasty path over the course of this year, remember, it's not just for us at the circle. I invite you to invite other people that you know who need to be a part of these conversations live. I know they get an opportunity to hear some of this stuff later, but still, to be here live. Because like how some of you have been able to ask questions and be able to be interactive, that's how you really get to learn. And just like I said, I got to give credit to Dr. Cheryl Clarke and to Nicole, even though we went a little longer today. But I think this was more beneficial because it didn't feel like I was just inundating you with information. Now we were more interactive to be able to see, like, wait a minute, if I had $5,000 in Netflix, $4 million. Then we heard about Amazon. It's like $5,000 got me 11.5 million. Like, wait a minute. Wait. We're not talking about crazy funds. We're not talking about, oh my, I need $100,000 to go into the market. I told you that a lot. And I know it was a couple of weeks ago. If you missed that episode, when I think Ms. Johnson was going to faint when we was talking about Bitcoin. You know, those people who had, I just had $1,000 worth of Bitcoin when first started. How much would it be worth? Even though it was fluctuating, going up to 124,000. Even right now, it's probably around 87 or 88,000. It's just crazy numbers. It's like, I just got $1,000 worth of Bitcoin. I just more or less just let it ride. I have the digital wallet. I just let it ride. And we're talking about some crazy, insane number. Just money you can't spend in your lifetime. But there's people out there who have that type of resources and liquidity. So next week, we're going to continue this conversation because now we're going to show how the liquidity brings us into the insurances. Because there's liquidity that can be made off insurance. And sometimes, especially when it comes to black and brown, they love to tell you to get term. Term is good, I would say, if you're 17. But no, I wouldn't even say that. Because even if you're a young person, that would probably be the best time to get some of the respective things that we're going to talk about next week. Because you're young enough where what they're expecting you to pay even monthly or to pay into some of those products is going to be just worth doing. Because after a certain level, a certain point, it's like, wait a minute, I have an asset. No one's trying to kill you off. So I hope you enjoyed this teaching today. First thing I'm going to share is for some of you who are looking for an AI tool or AI tools to utilize, you can use my link, my affiliate link, and give you the opportunity to visit galaxy.ai. You want to take a picture with your phone and then put that in your web browser. It's very nominal fees, and they give you access to not only one tool, a whole bunch of different tools. And for some of you who are in other conversations that we're having around AI tools, I would suggest you take a gather at this particular company because I have it myself. And there's certain times and certain things I need to do. It's very wonderful, the fact that I'm not circulating on 20 different AI tools. So take advantage of going to galaxy.ai, /ref equals Gregory. Go click, put that link, take a picture of that, type that whole web address and see what they're offering. And you'll be surprised if you're starting to get yourself abreast about AI tools, how it can be beneficial and helpful. And then the last thing I'm sharing for today is the ways that you can support the platform. Yes, sir. Yes, madam. Of course, if you're going to do it via Cash App, you can do it at $ Gregory Clarke DMin. You're doing it via Venmo, just drop the $, but it's the same handle, Gregory Clarke DMin. Or if you're choosing to do it via Zelle or PayPal, it's the same email address, esquire971@gmail.com. And I can't wait till we all come back next week. Hopefully it won't take as long, but with some of your questions and stuff like that, it may make it a little long, but this is good. Because this is about making sure that everyone gets it and we're not just flying through this as the road runner. So until next week, when we'll be back here at the same space, same time, invite some friends, invite some family, invite some associates, invite people that you know that needs this. Let their voices be in the conversation. Too many times we're not having our voices in these conversations, and that's not good. We don't need to be relegated to the back of the bus. We're not doing that. But we must seek out the information. We must be knowledgeable, and we must become responsible. So until next week, be blessed, highly favored, and allow your money to work for you instead of you just working for it. Dr. Clarke is signing off, and see you all next week. Peace and blessings.
Thank you.
Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings, family.
Amen.
Thank you.
Welcome, welcome.